This is the Rondeau M379. I'm sure you've recognized the look of this car from some of the other cars in the background of my previous video. I used this car in that video as a placeholder for Group C2 class cars, considering the car was slower and smaller than the standard C1 class cars. It also helped that the later versions of the M379 raced in Group C2. I was curious about what this car was and what it was about, and what I found was really cool. It is, to this day, the first and only car to ever win the 24-hour of Le Mans that carried the same name as the person who drove it. But I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, so let me just rewind a bit and start from the beginning. Jean Rondeau wasn't a stranger to racing when he decided to build this car. In fact, he was both a racing driver and a constructor by the time this car was developed. Specifically, this was the third car that he was a constructor of. The first car he built was pretty much in his own backyard. That first car gave other potential sponsors the motivation to support him after his initial sponsors pulled out. I don't want to go too far into the details, since this is mainly about the M379 and not about Rondeau's past cars, so that'll be it for the history. The only thing you really need to know past him building his own race cars was that he always participated himself in one of the cars that was made. And that's kind of cool in my opinion. So, the Rondeau M379 is an evolution of the previous year's GTP class winner, the M378. Huh, who would have thought? Anyways, with his success in the GTP class with a car that was capable of entering the Group 6 rules, it was only logical to finally take the car to its logical next step. However, it wouldn't be that easy. Rondeau was unable to secure a stable source of funding following the 1978 24-hour Le Mans, despite 3 consecutive class victories with his earlier machines. His lack of solid funding forced him to suspend all of his work after that. That is, until in the early 1979 season, when he finally managed to find enough funding through ITT and several other sponsors. Additionally, the exit of Porsche and Alpine Renault's factory teams gave Rondeau the motivation to try even harder, as the privateer teams had more of a chance of competing now that those two powerhouses were not participating anymore. The M379 was equipped with a Ford Cosworth DFV V8, similar to the previous cars he made before. Just to explain why he favored this engine in every model he made up to this point, he pretty much believed the DFV had the highest potential for success in that era of racing. It helped that it powered the 1975 24-hour Le Mans winning car, the Gulf Mirage GR8. Mated to that was a 5-speed transmission sourced from Hewland, which drove the power from the engine to the rear wheels, like in every other car on the grid at that time. Why did I add the transmission? Well, I mean, I couldn't just talk about the engine without adding on to what the engine was mounted to, right? Anyway, on to the racing history. 3 cars were made for the 1979 24-hour of Le Mans, with 2 of them being placed in the Group 6 category, which was the top category at the time. The third one was driven by Rondeau himself, and was placed in the GTP category. Unfortunately for the driver-turned-constructor, this car would DNF out of the race. The other 2 M379s achieved a 10th and 5th place position. Not really the best breakout year for the M379, huh? Well, turns out the design of the car's body was the problem. Its rear section only had a pair of fins rather than a wing, which made the rear just a bit unstable in those high-speed sections, especially the main Mulsanne straight. So, early in 1980, Rondeau managed to secure funding from his sponsors to develop and test a B-spec version of the M379. The most significant change was adding a pair of winglets onto the fins, increasing rear downforce. In Rondeau's second attempt with the M379, which he dubbed the M379B, he stuck with the GTP class with all 3 of his entries. This proved to be the best idea he could have made, as he personally drove his M379B to not only a class victory, but also to an overall victory of the entire 1980 24-hour Le Mans. Only one other car of his completed the race, getting a 3rd place in the class, the 3rd DNF due to a mechanical failure. But this race gave Rondeau a record no one has ever taken from him since. The record of driving his own car to win the 24-hour Le Mans. Rondeau was at the top of the world, and the sponsors clamored to sign with him for the next year of the 24-hour Le Mans. With how much funding his new sponsors gave him, he came out swinging in the 1981 race with 5 of the latest model M379s, which were designated the M379C. All 5 cars were given full-width rear wings rather than the winglets of the previous version, and 2 of the 3 Group 6 entries were given larger displacement 3.3-liter DFL V8 engines. The remaining Group 6 entry and the 2 GTP entries stuck with the DFV V8s. This increased effort was met with a challenge from the returned Porsche team with their upgraded 936s. Unfortunately, this is when tragedy struck Rondeau. Early on in the race, one of the Group 6 M379Cs had a mechanical issue, which caused it to veer into the right barrier of the Mulsanne Straight, going close to its top speed of 325 kilometers an hour. It killed the driver, Jean-Louis Lafosse, and it was instant. After that, the car flung itself across the track, hitting the other barrier. I've seen the footage of it, and it's not pretty. If you guys want to look at it yourself, feel free. You can look at it on YouTube, but I don't really want to include it in this. I don't really want to include any fatal crashes in my videos. I feel it's impolite to do something like that. It's just a personal thing. Well, didn't expect this video would gain a somber note to it when I first started working on this. Sorry if you guys just came here to learn about fast cars. Let's get back to it, shall we? Thankfully, no other deaths were in the Rondeau team's ranks during that race, though no other Group 6 entry finished the race. One of the cars DNF'd due to a crack in its chassis, and the other one had a fuel pump failure. Rondeau himself drove one of the Group 6 cars, so he was unable to complete the race. However, his 2 GTP entries managed to complete the race, getting a 1-2 finish in the GTP category, and a 2nd and 3rd place overall. The 1981 race would be one of the last times Rondeau fielded the M379 in his official team, as 1982 saw the introduction of Group C rules, which rendered the cars obsolete. Even so, 2 privateer teams fielded it for the 24-hour Le Mans of that year, racing in the Group C2 category. Only one of them finished, gaining a 10th place overall and a 5th place in its class. The other one DNF'd due to an engine failure. This would signal the downfall of the M379 as a competitive car. As the Group C cars added ground effects, they gained more and more ground on the M379, and the car itself wouldn't be able to stay as reliable as it had been in the previous years. Despite that, Rondeau brought it back for the 1983 24-hour Le Mans. However, he only brought one example, and that example DNF'd. In fact, both the M379C he fielded as well as the newer M382 DNF'd with mechanical issues. After that year, he never used the M379 again. Instead, privateer teams that bought chassis participated in races in the following years, achieving lackluster results for the most part. Even as they tried entering other races in the seasonal calendar, like the 1,000 kilometers of Spa or the 1,000 kilometers of Monza, they couldn't find success. The last result it achieved that was memorable was a first place at a race called SM Monza. It was outside the standard Group C schedule, but looking around the internet I didn't really find anything on what the SM meant. The record of the race itself only has the top 10's results, and only has the driver of the Rondeau that won it overall. If anybody has more information, I'd love it if you left it in the comments for me to read. I'm genuinely curious about this. So yeah, other than that one first place, it didn't get any astonishing results. It mainly DNF'd or gained low position. In my opinion, it makes sense. The car, even in its last iteration, wasn't built for the ground effect era that Group C brought. It was admirable that Rondeau, as well as the other privateers, tried their best to race the superior cars of the new era with them, but they just couldn't keep up with them anymore, both due to the inferior design and the reliability of the parts getting lower. It was a good car for the era it was built in, and that's all that anyone can ask for when they build a race car. Well, that's all she wrote for the M379. This is a car I really was interested in doing for my next video, with the primary reason being that it carried the same name as the guy who drove it. And on top of that, it actually won. It was pretty awesome reading about that bit of it, because when someone makes a record like that, you know they did some amazing work to actually achieve it. And having not even known about Rondeau at all before getting the mods and researching for this video, it once again really made me admire the car as well as the guy who made it all possible. If you want to drive the car for yourself, you can find it at Assetto Turismo's Patreon page. The link is in the description for those interested. Just like last time, this isn't a sponsored video, it's just where you can find them. Anyways, if you guys liked the video and the information I presented, I'd appreciate it if you liked the video and subscribed for more content. Don't forget to click the bell icon so you can get notified of my videos releasing the moment I release them. And with all that, I hope you guys have a great day, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Bye!